taking place. We'll move on next, and we'll deal with questions and aspects of research questions a little bit later on. So I'll hand over next to Professor Martin Bates. Martin is going to be talking to us about his new project, the palaeogeography of Cardigan Bay.
Can you see that, Elizabeth?
Yes, I can. Yes,
okay.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to talk about some work that we've been doing in Cardigan Bay over the last few years, and hopefully where we're going in the future. So this is just a little view looking north across Cardigan Bay from Constitution Hill in Aberystwyth on a particularly fine afternoon. So the area I'm talking about, obviously, is this area here in the central part of Wales on the west side, from the tip of the Llain Peninsula down to Fishguard down here, really. And the bedrock geology dominated by shales and greywackies and other sorts of sediments that don't particularly help the preservation of bone material, but we do get preservation of organic material, so very little bone except in exceptional circumstances. So the sorts of sediments we're dealing with on land are dominated by glacial deposits. You can see some of the till deposits here, just inland of Aberystwyth here. On the coast here, this grey material is the deposits laid down by the Welsh ice sheet. Other deposits, such as this long finger, these are one of the sarns of glacial debris that stretch out into the bay, and there are 3 of those in the bay. So these are the sorts of contexts that most of our Paleolithic archaeology, if there was any, of course, would be largely beneath this, with a little bit on the top, and all our Mesolithic archaeology on top of these sorts of deposits. We've seen Borth and some of the submerged peats. Obviously, these are reasonably well preserved in the northern part of the bay in places, and they peter out down towards the south, although you do get some peats in places like the Newport estuary, and all of these are examples from Borth itself. And then moving into the river valleys, this is part of the Aeron. This is an area we were about to start work with a site just up here near Vellenbach. This is an infill glacial lake, but on top of it are fluvial sediments, and you can see some of the sorts of sediments we're dealing with in here. And this is a Bronze Age peat that is outcropping in the canalized stretch of the Aeron River running through there. So these are sort of contexts we're talking about. And occasionally they do throw up interesting items, and this is a set of red deer antlers that came from Borth. Actually assumed that these were probably contemporary with the forest, but these have turned out to be Bronze Age, so they're in a channel cut into the peats. So obviously I'm not really talking about anything before the last glacial maximum. Wales was ice-free largely, according to most of the recent work, by 16,000. Obviously got the Younger Dryas event in here. And the main geographical changes in Cardigan Bay are happening around about this time. By the early Holocene, I think we're now fairly certain that the geography of Cardigan Bay had largely reached its modern outline. So here we are. Some of our evidence, I'll just talk you through some of the evidence. Most of the evidence that we've got to reconstruct the geography of the bay itself is historical data that was collected in the 1960s and the early 1970s, is archived by the BGS. So all of these are British Geological Survey boreholes, some of which were partially analysed by Aberystwyth University. So there's no new borehole data that I've got at the present time for Cardigan Bay, but surprisingly, nobody's ever really pulled this together in a coherent fashion. They've done little bits with it. So we've got 3 transects through the bay here, just to outline the basic structure of the geology. But we have got some new seismic data. So this is a sub-bottom profile. This is the seabed, the sea surface here. This is the seabed. And as part of work that we've been doing with the Europe's Lost Frontiers Doggerland project in the southern North Sea, we did get a little bit of time in Cardigan Bay to map some of the deposits beneath the seabed. And this is just off the coast of Aberystwyth. Here's Newquay. This is the map. That each one of these is one of these seismic sections running up towards Aberystwyth here. And what you can see very clearly picked out in red here is a valley, or a couple of valley forms running parallel to the coast here. The local fishermen call this the Trawling Grounds. And this is an infilled late glacial early Holocene valley with Irish sea till on the east side, west side of the area, and Welsh till on the east side, and filling up during the late glacial and early Holocene. Why is this not moving down? Excuse this operator incompetence here. So just look at some of these transects. This is the transect, our most northerly transect, running from here up to the Mouth estuary up here. And you can see these boreholes show that we've got two tills, an upper till and a lower till sitting on bedrock, sands between them. So these are probably interglacial sands. There's some PhD work that was done in Cardigan Bay in the 1970s that show these have interglacial faunas. Whether these are last interglacial or older, we're not sure, but sat on top of them is a sequence of Holocene deposits. There's a borehole up here just off somewhere around Tramadoc that has peat in the base of it. Unfortunately, there are no samples from this, so we don't know very much about it. Moving southwards, this is a transect coming into the Dovey through here. And again, you can see this tripartite sequence with a basal till, interglacial deposits, and an upper till, and then some Holocene sediments just offshore. And then this is the classic sequence at Borth that we've looked at in the past, with dates of around about 10,000 on the initial flooding of the estuary. But this is work done in the 1960s largely. And we're going to re-drill this borehole this summer, I hope, on land to get a definitive date of the flooding of the Dovey. And then the Arun transect coming down here. This is our most southerly transect coming across here. Again, the same tripartite sequence. Here, just off Aberystwyth, we've got the only dated sequence. This was done by Haynes et al. And published in 1977 with a thin peat sat in that river valley, the Trawling Ground river valley that we were mapping with the seismics. And here's that redrawn. So we've got a date. This is an uncalibrated date here of 8,740. To say this is a late 60s, early 1970s date, but it's on peat. And then we've got estuarine stuff over the top before the modern marine. So this is the only dated sequence we've got out there at the present time. So what we've done is use the bathymetry of the seabed to start to think about where these river systems might have been in the past when the bay was empty of water. Now, obviously, the modern bathymetry doesn't reflect directly the ancient bathymetry before flooding by the sea. So we've had to strip out a certain amount of sediment from these valleys to bring this somewhat closer to reality. And we know that the depth of some of the sediments, the Holocene and late Pleistocene sediments in these valleys, to get some idea of doing that. So we've stripped down the bathymetry. We've then, Sarah Boyd at St Andrews was able to take some of the radiocarbon dates and produce models of crustal movement and sea level change. And the northern end of the bay is operating differently from the southern end of the bay. So you can't just strip out the sediment, bring the sea level in, and produce a position of the coasts without compensating differently in the north and the south. So this is our best fit map for the rivers, and you can see here's the Aberystwyth and the Radal coming down here. This is the Trawling Grounds. This is where we've been doing the seismic work, and where that single borehole exists off Aberystwyth. So these are our best guess maps for how the coast came in. So by 9,000 years ago, you can see it's starting to approach the modern coastal geography, and by 8,000 years ago, these are all calibrated, by the way. So this is very early Holocene here. So all we've got left by then are the sands sticking out into the bay. And so all our submerged forests really are relating to very small scale change around the coast. So this helps us to think about our Mesolithic occupation or Mesolithic sites. These are the potential early Mesolithic sites around the bay, and these are the potential late Mesolithic sites around the bay. And you can see obviously the geography has changed significantly between the early and the late Mesolithic in this part of the world. And just to look at this site here, this is the Mesolithic site in Aberystwyth, which was excavated early 20th century, I think. And it sits here on this head between the Ystwyth coming through here and the Rheidol coming down through here. So what we've been able to do is think about the context of that site in the early Mesolithic. It's probably got early and late Mesolithic artifacts at this particular site, according to Andrew David, who's discussing it with. So in the early Mesolithic, you can see this is a 20-kilometer circle around the site, and I'm not suggesting site catchment analysis or anything like that, but it just gives us an idea to think about its position in relationship to long open tidal estuaries coming in from here, low coastal woodlands, tidal estuary of the Dovey up here. So we're going on a new project. This is a European funded project called Portalis, which is a joint effort between Southeast Ireland and West Wales, and we're going to look at the context of some of these Mesolithic sites. So here, this is Borth, the stratigraphy at Borth, running from south to north. We're going to drill a big hole somewhere down here to actually get the early Holocene Mesolithic stratigraphy at the bottom of that, to really get to grips with trying to understand the flooding history of that area. We're going to go inland to into the Aran Valley, where we have a Mesolithic or Neolithic site, which we discovered by chance a couple of years ago in a student excavation. We have some flints, and we have a half-polished stone axe from there. So we're going to be investigating that this summer and possibly next summer, and investigating the mouth of the Ystwyth as well. Whether we get out into the bay at some point, that's up for grabs. Getting core samples from Cardigan Bay is problematic with the dolphins and all the conservation issues out there. But ultimately, we're going to have to go out there to ground truth these models that we're putting together. So I think probably I've probably talked my 10 minutes there, so I better shut up and hand on to Martin. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Martin. It's great to hear this new project and to hear all the early results that you're already starting to get and pull together. So